The Chicago Bulls young players show that they understand the importance of the season they're heading into, setting up informal workouts together where 5 to 6 Bulls players got together. We're going to talk about the importance of that, especially heading into this season. We're also going to look at a free agent target that the Chicago Bulls reportedly could take a look at this offseason. That could be a low-cost but high-reward option that I didn't even expect to hear their name mentioned for the Chicago Bulls. And we're going to follow up and talk a little bit more about the Bulls denying the Knicks' request to interview Billy Donovan and a pending extension that could be coming. We're talking about all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And the Chicago Bulls young players are getting prepared. They're getting ready for the season, and it's June, right? So think about we're a few months away, probably 3 months away from even training camp starting for the Chicago Bulls team. And this is now the second year in a row where they're doing something like this. Last year, they met up in Los Angeles. They all did workouts there. They all stayed in the same hotel. They got together. They did some workouts. Where it seems now that Dalen Terry, Ayo Dosunmu, Coby White, Josh Giddey, and Matas Buzelis met in Los Angeles this year. I'm sorry, last year was in Miami. Last year was in Miami. This year's in Los Angeles. They all met in Los Angeles to put in some extra work together. This comes from KC Johnson, who mentions this. He did stress that this is not the same expansive workout that they saw last year in August in Miami, which was a big one as well. They saw basically all the team get together with Billy Donovan to do some workouts. This is still more informal than that, but it does show that the internal development and leadership that's coming here with the Chicago Bulls, I think that's really good. Now, some names that you don't see here is Patrick Williams. I think that Patrick Williams definitely could afford to be there, but to hear that Dalen, Ayo, Coby, Josh, and Matas Buzelis are all getting together, that's really good. These are all players that are going to be a really important part of the Chicago Bulls core unless changes happen going into the 2025-26 season. Coby, Ayo, and Giddey, Matas specifically, I think are going to play the most minutes when you look at that. Of course, Dalen Terry is another player that he stepped up last season. And I think when you see Dalen Terry, he made growth last year. It's still some questions on what his long-term role could be in the NBA, how much he's going to be able to do at any given level. But I think Ayo is specifically getting workout with these guys as well. Ayo was not out there with the Chicago Bulls when they went on their run after February, about mid-February, when they started playing better. So getting him together with these guys, and it really just shows the camaraderie that happens between these players. We've already seen Matas and Ayo Dosunmu on these live streams together. Their relationship seems to be firm when it comes down to that. They have a strong bond and relationship. So that's good to see. We already know Ayo and Coby are two of the closest players on this team as well. Josh really had chemistry seemingly with everyone, but Josh is a well-loved player. Even when you go back to his OKC Thunder days, his players and his teammates seem to really love Josh Giddey. So it's good to have this. And this is the leadership group of your team. When you look at Josh, Coby, and Ayo, they really are the leaders of this team right now. Of course, Matas has some of those leadership traits and qualities as well as he steps up and grows in this game, but he's coming into his second year, right? So, he's focused on some other things, but even he, with his mentality and those type of things, he has some leadership qualities also. So you just want to see this continue to grow for this Bulls team. I think this is something that, can easily go overlooked. I'm not saying that it's going to be a huge reason why the Bulls have success or whatever else next year if they do have it, but I am saying that it is one of those things that you look at while you're trying to build your team and build your organization that really does help a team out and get all on the same page. Chemistry is important. I think that's something that, we kind of overlook at times. Chemistry off the court. I do think also just liking your teammates, enjoying being around your teammates is part of basketball that really does play into a lot of what helps this team, what helps teams as well kind of be better than what the sum of their parts on paper would tell you that they can be. So as those things continue for this Bulls team, I'm happy to see that these guys are getting together and growing off the court together. So hopefully that growth on the court. And this season is going to be an important one for this Bulls team, man. You got a lot of evaluations that are happening. Of course, Josh Giddey has his contract stuff going on with the Bulls that is going to get a resolution this summer. But then you still got Ayo, you still got Coby, right? You still got these guys that need some help. Even Dalen Terry is somebody who, his rookie scale deal comes up soon. And so the Bulls are going to have to make a decision on what Dalen Terry, like what are they willing to pay to bring him back and things like that if he comes back. And I do want to say that's an if. Now, with Dalen's taking a step up last year, now coming into year 4, you like to believe that he's going to be able to take it another step further, hopefully, but you can't guarantee that either. So, these young guys are still very, very young, right? And I think for people who, they like to, because these guys have been in the league for a while, especially when you look at like Coby and stuff like that. But like with his role changing each and every year, Josh Giddey, for the majority of the time he's been in the NBA, he hasn't really got to play just his role. He had to fit in with Shea and Jalen Williams. Even at the beginning of last season, the fit wasn't quite the same with Zach LaVine, and they all kind of, him and Coby, kind of their roles were affected playing with Zach LaVine. As far as like Coby becoming a jump shooter, Josh Giddey not really having as much control over the offense as what he had later on into the season. So, these guys still have room. They're not their finished products yet. So we're going to get to see how they continue to develop that. So, really good to see and hear that the Bulls are doing their own thing this offseason and finding ways to connect together. I think that's going to continue to be important for this team as they just continue to try to find their way in this league. And hopefully the best comes out of it for the Chicago Bulls. But in one thing with that, right, the Bulls are continuing to try to find young players with experience, right? That's been something that AK has said a lot, is that getting and acquiring young players with experience is still something that's at the top of the requirement list for the Chicago Bulls. And so we got to see how that's going to continue to develop for this team, of course, right? But with that said, the question now becomes with that team is that how do you go and acquire some of those players? Some of those players are going to be available in trade. Some are going to be available that you're going to have to go out and acquire via free agency. You're going to have an opportunity to do that. And one of those players has actually popped up, and it's a surprising name because it's a name that left the NBA, came back. We've seen players do this before. They're able to have a nice second leg of their career, and that's 25-year-old Kevin Porter Jr. And make no mistake about it, when I initially saw this article that Kevin Porter Jr. is somebody that the Chicago Bulls could target to add to their young core coming into next season, I was like, I've seen Kevin Porter Jr. play, and I said, I almost forgot that he came back into the league last year. He signed basically a prove-it deal with the Los Angeles Clippers last year, and he played 45 games for them. He averaged 9.3 points per game on 42% shooting, 24% shooting from three over that time. Not great numbers at all. But then in a trade to Milwaukee, he played 30 games for Milwaukee, 11 points per game on 49% shooting, 40% shooting from three. He chipped in almost 4 rebounds, almost 4 assists, and over a steal per game. Now, in no way am I saying that Kevin Porter Jr. is all of a sudden this amazing prospect. Not saying that. But I'm saying that while the Bulls have risk tolerance, which is the thing that we keep talking about with the Chicago Bulls, to take a shot at some young players, I mean, Kevin Porter Jr. could be a really good one for them. He's going to opt out of his $2.5 million deal, and he's going to be looking to sign a more extensive contract. Now, not a huge contract, and he's not going to be a player that I think is even going to get more than the mid-level, maybe not even the full mid-level exception, but I think there is something to be said there, right? Playing with the Milwaukee Bucks, his efficiency was 49% from the field, 41% from three, 87% from the three-point line, right, which is good. He had a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. But then in March 2nd, through the end of the season, after Dame went down, basically, right, and he had to step in and take on a larger role before Dame eventually came back for the playoffs, Kevin Porter Jr. averaged 14.3 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 1.5 steals on 25 minutes per game. And what would they be getting in Kevin Porter Jr.? In no way are you bringing him in here to be a starter. I don't think that's what you're doing. Even if the Bulls were to move on from Coby White, I don't think you want Kevin Porter Jr. to be your starter there. Maybe, I guess. But I think that you're looking at him and potentially being a bench spark plug. And there are going to be some other teams to take a shot at him, especially with the production that he showed. That in game 4 of the playoffs, in the first round series of the playoffs last year, he scored 23 points on 5 of 7 shooting from three with 6 assists and 2 steals. There's still some talent there in this kid. And this is the type of opportunities that the Bulls should take to look at players. I get it. The Kevin Porter Jr. was originally drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was then traded to the Houston Rockets, where he did have a 19-point per game season. I think like Kevin Porter Jr. was a player that still needs to work on his game for sure. But he had one season of 16 points per game, another of 15 points per game, another of 19 points per game on decent shooting efficiency of 44% and 36% from three. I think that this is the type of player that you want to take a flyer on. He went away, he played in Greece, he came back into the NBA. But when you're sitting in a place where you're trying to find shots of talent, keep in mind, this is a guy that was a former first-round pick. I think that you can take a shot at Kevin Porter Jr. this offseason. Now, in no way I'm saying he should be your main target. It's another guard/wing, and the Bulls have other things that they need to focus on first. But I think if you get through the draft, if you address your big man in the draft, which is an if for the Chicago Bulls team, we'll get more on that here in a second. If you are able to address your big in the draft, and then even in the second round, if you do something creative, I think that looking for that bench spark plug could be a thing that you could do here. So I like it for the concept of what it is, right? Not necessarily saying that this is something that I think that you need. And the article, by the way, was written by Andrew Hanlon. Overall, Pippen ain't easy, so go and check that one out. But it is an interesting case study here, right? Like I could see if the Bulls wanted to take a 2-year flyer, maybe on somebody like him, maybe a 2+1 type deal to see what Kevin Porter Jr. could turn into. And I know a lot of people are going to look at this and say, Hayes, we've seen Kevin Porter Jr., but I'm telling you, go and look at some of his stat lines with the Milwaukee Bucks, and then go watch some of the tape. Players sometimes have to go away to come back and understand how they need to play at the NBA level. And with having that opportunity taken away from them, they kind of wake up a little bit. Is that going to be him? We'll see. I'm not going to say that it is for sure, because it could very well be that they let the leash go a little bit, and he performed pretty well in it. But I think overall, like there's something to look at here, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But if the Bulls were to go into free agency and take a shot at a Kevin Porter Jr., keep in mind, that's basically what the Bulls did with Ronnie Brewer. And while Ronnie Brewer didn't have like some amazing season with the Chicago Bulls, if you remember correctly, he did play a role and a key one at times for the Bulls coming off the bench. Same thing with CJ Watson. So sometimes you have to identify players that are worth taking a shot at and then see what they can bring for you on your team. Kevin Porter Jr. didn't work out in some other stops. He carved out a niche for himself over in Milwaukee. Maybe he can do something similar for the Bulls. Again, this is a big hypothetical. We don't know what's going to happen exactly with the Bulls' positions. And that wing area could be very crowded for the Bulls. With having Ayo Dosunmu back, you already got Coby and Giddey as your starters at the 2 and at the 1 and the 2. At the 2 and the 3, you got Kevin Porter Jr. You got Kevin Porter Jr. You got Kevin Huerter that can contribute there. You still got Ayo Dosunmu coming back as well, right? So you have Dalen Terry there also, who's going to play some 2 and some 3, even some small ball 4. You still got Patrick Williams, who's going to be trying to fit in and find his way at the 3 and the 4 next season. So could it get very crowded there for the Chicago Bulls? But if they were to go big in this draft, I wouldn't be mad at them taking a shot at Kevin Porter Jr. with their open roster spot if they don't fill that up with the trade or something else. But let me know what you guys think on that down below as far as Kevin Porter Jr. for the Chicago Bulls. Now, all the mocks have been updating, which shouldn't be a surprise this close to the draft. We are less than 2 weeks away from the NBA draft, and No Ceilings, a outlet that many people respect and love their draft coverage. They go in the weeds. They're basically focused almost solely on draft and prospect coverage for the entirety of the year. If you need a place that you can go and check in on some of these prospects over the course of the NCAA season, No Ceilings is really the place to do that. But with that said, in their latest mock draft, they actually have the Bulls drafting Thomas Sorber. Now, just to kind of update it, in NBADraft.net, their most recent update, which came on the 6th, so about 6 days ago, they're probably going to be coming out with a new one here soon that we'll talk about over the weekend. They have the Bulls drafting Nick Clifford. The Ringer, who just updated their mock draft a couple of days ago, they have the Bulls drafting Kaman Malawak and him falling to the Chicago Bulls there. And then when you look at this, No Ceilings now has Thomas Sorber being there and moving up in this draft. And I think this is a solid place for Thomas Sorber to be at. Of course, people are looking. There was somebody, by the way, who left a comment that said, Thomas Sorber is going to fall into the second round. You, sir, are an idiot. Like, he's not a great shooter, so he's going to fall into the second round. Some of y'all need to actually watch some people and actually touch dirt a little bit, but nonetheless, I'm not going to focus on that. But Thomas Sorber, there to the Chicago Bulls, and the blurb here, this one's written by Nathan at No Ceilings. He says this: Thomas Sorber was one of the better defensive playmakers in this draft class, and landing the Georgetown product would be a massive win for the Chicago Bulls, a franchise that has lacked a defensive-minded center for quite a number of years, and Sorber's size, length, and instincts would help him form an identity on that end of the floor behind a number of creative shot makers. Should his outside touch come around, he may end up as one of the steals in this draft class when it's all said and done. For now, he's a capable post scorer, roller, rebounder, and interior defender with the potential to develop into much more. Keep an eye on how he can impact the game as a passer upon reaching the next level in his playing career. And that's the thing for Thomas Sorber that really, we talk about all these prospects and what surprised in the combine, Thomas Sorber's passing was something that a lot of people talked about. And that's because he didn't get a chance to use it a lot at the NCAA level, but he is a solid enough interior passer as well. Thomas Sorber brings a lot of things that this team could need. There's no prospect that brings everything that the Bulls need. There's just not. As far as switchable, as far as size, as far as defensive and rim protection, there's not a guy that brings all of those things. There are some that get close. Thomas Sorber, Rasheer Fleming are two guys that get very close. By the way, No Ceilings has Rasheer Fleming going right after the Chicago Bulls to the Atlanta Hawks at number 13. So, we'll see what happens when it comes down to that one. But Thomas Sorber in his size, his legit size, the 7'5" wingspan, being basically 6'2" with legit NBA size at 262 pounds already, Thomas Sorber brings a lot of those things that the Bulls could need, and him being mocked here to the Bulls makes a lot of sense. I don't really find any holes with it. He's been one of my favorite prospects in this draft, but it just goes to show what I talked about yesterday. The Bulls are sitting in a place where, realistically, I'm not saying all of them, but the Bulls can have 2 or 3 of Derek Queen, Kaman Malawak, Asa Newell, Thomas Sorber, Rasheer Fleming. 3 out of those 5 guys are potentially going to be on the board when the Bulls pick at number 12. That's just the reality of it. Now, the case comes down to is that how the Bulls are also going to evaluate it, because there's no guarantee in that. There's just no guarantee that that's also how the Bulls are going to view this draft board. We already know that they are not looking at a specific position. They're more looking at fit and overall up-end talents as far as best player available. So we'll see if these guys are on the board for the Bulls, but it would be hard to believe, with hearing how the Bulls are shopping Nikola Vucevic actively, that at least one of these guys is not somewhere on the Bulls board, right? And the question is how high are they on the board? The Bulls have worked out nobody but Asa Newell, right? Did I even mention Asa Newell when I just went through those guys? Because that's another one that could be there. But they've not come in with, as far as we know, publicly. Now, Casey Johnson has said that the Bulls could be working out some guys that aren't public, kind of off the books, to kind of throw off teams from their scent. And maybe that is what they're doing here, but we shall see what happens with the Chicago Bulls and what they end up doing. So we shall see. But with that said, let's get into the last topic of today, and that is Billy Donovan. Now, I dropped a live stream on this last night, and that is that the New York Knicks requested to interview Billy Donovan, and the Bulls quickly turned that down. And I'll say this, that's not a surprise. That's not a shock, right? It's not a shock that the Bulls turned down Billy Donovan being interviewed by another NBA team. I think they were open to letting Billy Donovan interview for a college position last year if that's really where Billy Donovan's heart was, but that's because it's not in the NBA. I don't think that they were going to be apt to let him interview with another NBA team. But what came out of that also, on top of Casey Johnson reporting that, Cody Westerlin, I believe of 670 The Score, reported that the Bulls, that many around the NBA have expected Billy Donovan to sign a contract extension this summer with the Chicago Bulls, which then I looked at and I was like, all right, here we go again, right? Now, I don't think even if he does sign an extension, we probably won't get an announcement of it. He'll just come back to work next week and all be like, oh, he must have another contract next week, next year. But the question then lies in the conversation around Billy Donovan. I've said many times, Billy Donovan is not a horrible head coach. I don't think Billy Donovan is a great head coach either. I think Billy Donovan sits in the place where he's a perfectly decent head coach that has some pretty big deficiencies, but he does do some things well. The Bulls have cited his ability to connect to players, how collaborative he is with the front office, right, as far as being on the same page with them, and they value that a lot. And I think when you look around the league, for example, like the Denver Nuggets, a team that won a championship, but their GM and their coach did not see things the same way, and it led to both of them being fired. So I can understand a front office valuing that relationship. I also think that, to a degree, that some coaches do become scapegoats for teams. Now, Billy has some legit things that he does not do well. I think he does not adjust well. I think that Billy Donovan also is a guy that that doesn't always use players to their best ability, I always go to Zach LaVine, great catch and shoot player. Over his time here with Billy Donovan, we ran less than 10% catch and shoot opportunities for Zach LaVine, period. And he's one of the better catch and shoot per percentages players in the league, making Coby White a jump shooter. Throughout most of Billy Donovan's time here, he's made Coby White a jump shooter. Now, the 2023-24 season, the majority of that, he did not. The 2024-25 season, which was last season, the majority of that, Coby was once again made a jump shooter. That changed after Zach LaVine was traded. Now, Coby found a way to still be effective throughout most that season, averaging over 20 points per game, and he was solid throughout that. He had like one bad stretch, but he was solid throughout most of that, but there were still some questions there on that. So Billy Donovan is a guy that he's perfectly fine in a lot of areas, but there's some areas, especially when you watch him night in and night out, that you look at and they become more glaring as time goes on. But the Bulls are committed to Billy Donovan, and I've said this before many times. The minute that Billy Donovan said he talks to Jerry Reinsdorf every day, I knew he was going to be locked in here for a while, because once you're a Reinsdorfian guy, that's something that just is what it is there. So, we'll see what the future holds for Billy. If he gets a contract extension announced this summer, of course, we'll talk about that extension, if it's even announced, and that's a big if with this Bulls team, because we don't know if that's even going to happen, but we shall see what happens there. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.